Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. A very dark and maybe even gloomy morning on this morning. A new week of new opportunities as we start getting ready for Monday, as CMEs are open once again for trading. Plus, we got futures trading already, and plenty of things to talk about actually, as this is going to be the culmination of many market derivatives kind of meeting up together. Anyways, with that said, let's put the focus on the Krown Chain application over here, which we found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see? We do see pretty much the same shit that we saw from yesterday. Open interest popped up about 25 million. That's the biggest difference. Bitcoin dominance still holding the range. Fear and greed index still holding the exact same value, 42. And while Bitcoin does kind of oscillate within this region between 10,100 and 11,000 as far as price action goes, we have noticed that the open interest continues to operate between the levels of 1.9.5 billion and 2.1.5 billion. So we're still looking for a actual break of that range in open interest correlated with a break of the price action range, likely in line with looking at something like historical volatility percentile plus volume plus I would imagine that there's probably going to be some sort of a pattern thrown in there some way as well, and that is going to be the big confluential breaker towards the next major move likely within this market. Anyways, checking out the data tab right here, what do we see? We do see nothing because it's not loaded. All right, what do we see now? We see 0.02% on the global funding rate. Yeah, still very much well I think this one says it all right here. The global volume, you can see that it's several degrees less than what we've seen, and even just the past few months. So if that tells you that crypto market ain't fucking sleeping right now, well, I don't know what will. So with that, so let's actually go into the price action charts. By the way, I will be releasing a video later today on how to join the Discord, mostly because I've been getting 1,000,001 messages on how to get in the Discord. There's one extra step compared to most of the Discords, and it'll be covered in that video, or I'll just spoil the surprise right now. You have to answer your PMs. That's all. It's simple. Anyways, as we get into the actual charts themselves, let's start off with the daily. And seeing as we do have the weekly close now in place, where does that lead us? Well, we did close right around the exact same area that we left off yesterday, somewhere around 10,600ish region, 10,650 it looks like. And what does Bitcoin do in the early morning hours? Get that next big up to 10,750ish region, our short-term resistance area to the upside, as we spoke about yesterday. So Bitcoin's still more or less playing off the short term, but nothing too crazy to go on as it is right now. Let's take a quick look at how the actual weekly did close. Still playing between the 10 simple and the 21 exponential moving average. I really don't have much to make out of this right here. Looking at momentum oscillators, we do still see weekly Stokes nice and angled to the downside. We do have a major trend line that has formed all the way out over here, which would be protecting against the bearish control zone, but that also would imply that we do have some headway there. And it sounds like a fucking pilot or some shit. And on your right hand, you can see the Mount Everest or whatever. Anyways, looking at weekly RSI, what do we see here? Again, long term, it is constructive. Short term, what do you call this? You call this neutral. It's not really giving us too much right there. And if we go back down to the daily, I do believe that we saw the daily RSI is still flat as well. Daily historical volatility percentile actually even hitting a double single digit read right here. I think yesterday, yeah, we just printed barely over 1% or one spot. What is this? Or sorry, the first 0.31 sorry 337 percentile, and working on the same thing today as well, it looks like. So realistically, what does that imply? That implies that we are at kind of like an outlier as far as the last 365-day look-back period goes. To give an example of what typically happens when we get this low, well, we just have to go back to about July of this year to kind of get a good read on that, as it did hit quite literally a zero after about a month or two of consolidation in June, yeah, and a little bit of July as well, so about a month and a half right there, and then boom, major explosion, which was this whole explosion right here from about 9,200 all the way to a final price of about 12,500 region. We can find out a few more examples on this going throughout the history of Bitcoin as well. Also just works when it's generally low to begin with, but you will likely notice that throughout the year of 2018, we did print several low reads, and that did end up producing the whole major massive meltdown, going from 6,000 all the way down to 3,000. Not so long afterwards. And then, of course, this major consolidation phase right here, represented by a major contraction phase on historical volatility percentile down here. And then, boom, massive move sustained for the next 3 months to the upside from about 4,000 to 14,000. And yes, we can go back further in time and find more examples, but I think that kind of nails in the point. I do believe that we're going to be looking at a relatively large move sooner rather than later on this asset. I would even say this week is somewhat likely. Looking at the daily momentum, what do we see? We do see daily Stokes kind of down, but floating around. Let's see what the reverse Stochastic indicator across has to say about that. And we will actually turn momentum back down with any sort of a close literally here or lower by end of day. And this would be yet again another lower high, essentially as it's stated right here as well. What do we do have on the very low term time frames? We do have a lower high in formation right now. So going over here to the 4 hour, what do we see? We do see that 4 hour momentum had a nice little bearish reset as 4 hour Stokes went all the way up to the trend line that we had in yesterday. I guess it was right here. I don't know what that one was, what was related to, probably the 3 hour if I had to guess, but the 4 hour had a similar one going all the way back to September 15th, by the way, which has been getting a lot of highs within this current consolidation, like this one right here, this one more so right here, and then once again right here. And so if we do see this turn back down, which by the way it will with any sort of 4 hour total closure below 10,707, which is coming in the next 3 hours and 42 minutes and 54 seconds, we will naturally see momentum turn to the downside alongside a lower high being printed, alongside a rejection off the 200x moving average. And if we do start to extrapolate that into the 12 hour and daily, we do see that, well, more or less the same actually, funnily enough. So with that in mind, I also do want to point out that historic volatility percentile here on the 4 hour has contracted all the way down to multiple single digit reads in a row, which again, similar to the daily, is likely to produce some short-term volatility. So with that in mind, when we start to line up the 4 hour in the daily and seeing that both of these are kind of contracting rather aggressively right now, we likely would be looking for a move to one of the ends of the range, this range again being between about 10,000 and 11,000 probably this week. And we actually even see even more aggressive tailings off or if you want to call it a contraction phase in historic volatility percentile, going down to at the 3 hour, 2 hour, and 1 hour, which we can briefly show right here, the confluence between all these different ones, as you should naturally have, and that's usually when the bigger trades do happen. And as I just kind of peruse around them, you can see that they're all extremely low, and the hourly starting to actually lead them all up right now as it's starting to enter into an expansion phase. You see the moving average start to maintain its nice positive slope as it does peak up once again. Well, that is a good sign that we probably do actually see a nice move probably today, even around traditional market open at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Anyways, let me take this off for a second and let's just continue to kind of focus on the low term timeframes. I don't think that there's going to be too much interesting things happening between now and in regular market open. Probably more or less sideways between this range of about 10.7 and 10.6, and then once we get U.S. markets opening up, I would be looking for that one to give a direction of which we spoke at length on Saturday, which I'll be covering again today, I suppose, as it is very much relevant right now. But is there anything that I want to cover on Bitcoin first that I haven't really said? Well, I guess I haven't said a lot yet, as we are relatively early within this video right here. Looking at the 12 hour, what do we see? We do see 12 hour Stokes actually trying to point north right now, and they are playing off this trend line right here too. Now, what does that mean? Well, we actually do have two competing trend lines. We do have some sort of a consolidation going on right here, which does represent quite accurately on price action that we are going through a consolidation phase right here as well. Does it give us any sort of insight into the buy on this? Well, with momentum turning up right now, it would suggest that we do play out a little bit more up. However, lining that up with the short-term timeframes, I don't think that that's what's going on right here. We can see that momentum turns back onto the downside below 10,520. The reason why that is interesting is because if you are looking at this as a symmetrical triangle, which technically speaking right now it kind of is. I mean, well, it actually is, although I don't think that it will eventually operate like such. That would actually destroy our current higher low right here and actually destroy the symmetrical triangle along the same path as well, meaning that if we do start to take it out to the downside, that would be 10,400ish region on, sorry, let me get exact numbers here, about 10,440 it looks like. Then that would break your higher low structure. Look for a quick move down another $200 or sorry, $300 down to about 10.1 region, and that's at the point where this starts to not just look like a symmetrical triangle, but actually a descending triangle. And this whole thing would then be kind of marked off as a redistribution coming off of this major drop right here from about 12,000 all the way down to about 10,000. So that's what's at stake right now, and I believe that we actually will resolve this situation likely this week. Anyway, and what I mean by resolution is I mean a daily or even a 12-hour total closure above 11,000 or below 10.1. On a 12-hour though, could we use 10.1? Actually, no. On a 12-hour, still have to use 10,000. But on a daily, could use 10.1, as that is your closing lows right here, coming in from early September on the 8th. So I would still keep that one in mind. And realistically, anywhere below our 23rd of September low right here likely does get it anyways, and that is 10,135 and about a quarter, as that would imply continuation. And well, at the very least, I'd be looking for another test down to the 200x Benjamin average right here, which is right around about 9,900-ish region, and probably another small bounce on a short-term time frame. But realistically, if we do start to violate that region right there and violate it harshly, then yes, that's likely going to be the first major nail in the coffin for this consolidation actually being resolved to the downside, which would not just imply targets down to about 10,000, which would actually imply targets all the way down here. As I am assuming with this measured move right here, I want to be very clear with this so that hopefully I don't get misheard. But it's the internet; you can't control that. Jesus Christ, man, isn't that the fucking truth? But looking at this right here, yes, if Bitcoin were to come back down to even 10,100-ish region, that's going to start to mark this off as a descending triangle, like I said. And with a descending triangle, we could make a measure move, and that's where I'm getting this right here. The reason why I really like this is because one, it lines up beautifully with this liquid zone coming in from this last base that Bitcoin put in from May to July. And then on top of that, it also would be hitting the 377 Benjamin average right here, which is incredibly important, especially on a daily like this. And on top of that, what do we see with the volume profile? We see a massive point of control within that same region as well. So all these things coming into confluence with each other. We got pattern, we got volume profile, we got liquid zones, and we got major moving averages, which typically does make a nice and interesting trade for myself. And looking at that, I would suggest that if Bitcoin were to break down to that level, that would suggest, not I would suggest. I'm just interpreting this as far as it goes. It is what it is at the end of the day, and I really want to do a better job of removing my opinion from things and stating technical analysis straight up rather than my opinion. Or at least when I do give my opinion, I want to be very clear. This is opinion, not necessarily like straight up technical analysis. So hopefully that is clear as well. Anyways, looking at this right here, I would be looking for an extremely strong bounce off this region and potentially even a reversal. Now, with that said, Bitcoin still at $10,000 or I guess above 10,100 on a daily total closure. I still do look at this, technically speaking, mostly governed just by my system as still a potential reversal zone. It's technically not until Bitcoin breaks back down below this level where that goes out the wayside and no longer this is going to be your reversal zone, but just a failed bounce and pretty damn impressive bounce on top of that. I mean, it was about a $1,500 move from somewhere around 98 to a little bit above 11.2. But at the end of the day, which way does it get resolved? Well, that's going to likely call the next major direction in this market probably for like the next month or two. And by the same token, to the upside, I'd kind of err a little bit more on the side of caution here. Could we use this high right here as a continuation point at 10,956 to the upside? Technically, yes. Would I use that myself? Fuck no. I'd use 11,000 even. I just think that is some, it's a little bit less fraught with peril, especially on a 12-hour total closure. Anywhere above 11,000 looks good to me. Or a 12-hour closure, anywhere above this high right here, which is about 10,900 region. It looks like as well. So both of those two things would be good for me to declare a breakage to the upside or the downside. And just like we spoke about measure moves and targets to the downside, we can do the same thing to the upside as well. And realistically, it's, to spoil a surprise, it's the same areas that we'd be looking at, that Bitcoin was operating off of throughout the month of August right here. So 11.5 would still be of interest. See a lot of big breakdowns and big bounces based upon that region. Then 11.8 on this big breakdown right here, and then of course 12,000 or a little bit north of 12,000. Actually, for the for the big one to the upside. But realistically, if Bitcoin even just breaks back above, let's call it 11,000, because it's a little bit easier to say, then I would just generally be bullish overall. So while I would have those areas marked out for short-term pullbacks and whatnot, my general bias, my general disposition would be Bitcoin is just continuing upwards and onwards as far as I'm concerned. So that's pretty much what I'm looking for to be resolved this week, and we've been patiently waiting for a long time now, and hopefully the trading gods will be good to us. Looking at volume signature here too, I think that it is worth pointing out that we are getting extremely full within this current formation, and once these things get about 70 to 75% full, they do become, statistically speaking, extremely likely to break. So we're seeing that on volume, we're seeing that on volatility, and we are seeing that in also come in the formation of, this formation right here. Let me actually pull out a fresh chart. Let me go to Finex for a second, and this formation as it is right now, like I said, I actually don't think that it's going to going to work out like this, but as it is right now, we do have a symmetrical triangle. So, you actually could make that same sort of measure move to the upside, and I'm doing a very bad job of it right here. But technically speaking, it actually would be pointed all the way north towards about 11,800-ish region. Although I would have a bit of caution right around 11.5 for a short-term pullback. But realistically, looking nice and healthy if that were to happen. Again, granted, one of two things. I want to see either a 12-hour closure above 10.9 or daily, above there by extension. Or we could also use, I suppose, this high right here as a continuation point, but that's another $300 to the north side. So probably just easier to look at this one right here for what it's worth right now. As it stands, as you can see, Bitcoin is very obviously riding off the 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average for its current support, which is going to be lining up with the bottom side of this. If you are looking at this as a symmetrical triangle, which again, it does work as it is right now. It's just I don't think this is typically not how you actually see these things work out. But technically speaking, if you're going by the book, yes, this would be okay, so to speak. It'd probably be a little bit more accurate to do something more like this instead, as I really don't trust that descending trend line that we just had in there. This would look actually a little more like an ascending triangle, which would give it a slight bullish bias. But again, at the end of the day, I don't care what sort of name you put on these sorts of things. I only care about which way that you break. So again, the magical numbers, as far as I'm concerned, is 10.9 to the upside and in about 10,100 on a daily closure to the downside, or one of the other situations that we covered as well. Anyways, what about the 2-day and 3-day? I think that we did not close a 2-day yesterday, or did we? We did close a 2-day yesterday. Okay, nice. Bitcoin looks a lot more obviously bearish on the 2-day actually. Playing below the 10 symbol and the 21 exponential moving average. And more importantly with that, we're actually seeing the 10 symbol start to diverge away from the 21. And more importantly than that, what do we have? Well, we do have quite literally a downtrend on this chart as well, with several lower highs going all the way from 12.5. Then we got to 11.6 right here. Then more recently at 11,000, again at 10.8. And then we have low and then lower low. So there is your downtrend as it is right now. And with Bitcoin breaking anywhere below, especially the 55 exponential moving average, I would be looking for resolution essentially. Anyways, what else do we want to check out? 2-day Jewel. Do we see anything of note here? Yeah, so I pointed this out yesterday that it is somewhat lining up for a sell signal or a continuation of your short signal. This is not a signal that I would take. As it is right now, the blue did not maintain the negative slope. I probably would not be looking for this one to play out, at least as it is right now. I'd want to see at least another day of price action for that one to potentially push back. Looking at reverse Stochastic indicator cross, what do we see? 10.550 is the magical number, and that will actually reject this from getting out of the neutral zone and into the bullish control zone and back down. So again, a little bit of a bearish reset there. But realistically, we're really splitting hairs right now. I do believe that with all the momentum oscillators, with all the cool momentum oscillators that you can look at in the world, right now is really the time to just be looking at levels, because they are very, 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 very well defined here. And well, I just happen to think that is just easier to document and easier to watch and easier to trade. Looking at the 3-day right here, what do we see? We do see momentum will actually turn back onto the downside with any sort of a closure below 10,770. The reason why this is important is because this one actually does close tonight, and that's going to confirm this once again to the downside. So 3-day Stokes would remain in the bearish control zone, rejected more importantly from getting outside of them, which does imply that yes, we are going to start to at the very least test back down to about 10.1 region. And again, once Bitcoin comes back down around there, this starts to look a lot more like, it looks a lot more like a descending triangle, which would imply redistribution, of course. So with that in mind, let me, whoops, I just realized I might be playing sound in the background. Hopefully that's actually not going through, because that'd be really fucking annoying today. Apologies for that. Feeling a little bit weird. I don't know if I'm getting sick or something, but my head just doesn't feel like it's on straight right now. Anyways, Elsa says Corona. Fuck off. Oh, here comes the forks. Oh. Is it fork time? Oh no, it's not fork time. All right, great. Anyways, yeah, so 3-day momentum will turn back onto the downside. More importantly, it would reject it from, we'll continue it up on here, and I'd be looking for this space to fill out back onto the downside around 10.1. So again, magical number on that one is, funnily enough, lined up exactly where the 21 exponential average is, which is about 10,750-ish region. That is our current high on this current run. Anywhere below there, yes, again, it will turn back onto the downside, and that would be my next sort of puzzle piece for looking for another move back down here and slowly coming up with a more bearishly biased trading plan. Although I'm actually not trading this one right now. I do want to be very, very transparent transparent. I'm not trading Bitcoin right now. As I said last week, since due to the whole CFTC bringing those charges against BitMEX, I would like to see how this plays out a little bit first. This is not to say that you can't make money in Bitcoin. This is not to say that I expect like, you know, the fucking world to crumble. No, but I do happen to think that based off the charges, it's likely that we're going to see this happen to other exchanges, because the reason why they're going after them is due to the Bank Secrecy Act. And the Bank Secrecy Act is basically a way to get these exchanges for having American customers on it. That's what they're going after them for. Sorry, meaning the CFTC. So I would imagine BitMEX, not so different than a lot of other major exchanges, Deribit, Bybit, what Prime XBT is probably one of them. Who fucking knows what the name of the of the month is this time? But you get where I'm going at with that. As any time you are operating with a financial account as an American citizen, you need to be reporting that to the IRS and to the financial authorities. And if you don't, then big problems. So they're going to go after them for that. Because they didn't have any KYC, so I'd imagine all these exchanges that are big enough to give a fuck about that don't have KYC, which is pretty much all of them, are going to be maybe under a little bit of a microscope. So I like to see how this plays out for a little bit of time. In the meantime, I'm just going to be trading Forex, so I do want to be extremely transparent with that. I have no skin in the game right now at all whatsoever with Bitcoin. I mean, I do hold Bitcoin, right? But I don't really consider that like a trading. So as far as trading goes, no skin in the game right now, which is I think the more honest way of putting that. Anyways, so let's go check out CMEs. How do they come into the new week? Yeah, pressure down here as well in the 3-day, but what does it look like on the daily? Daily looks more or less the same. I don't really have anything new to talk about here. Do we have anything to be aware of on momentum oscillators? Yes, we do. Mom oscillators, my chicken tendies turning back down on the daily right now, as we do see it reject the bullish control zone, and it will remain to the downside as long as you're below 10,935, essentially following the down sloping, or what I should just say more naturally as the lower high schedule right here as well. So as it stands right now, yeah, I would be looking for Bitcoin to push back off its current area, somewhere back down to the short-term downside range, probably back down towards about 10,550-ish region. I'd also imagine that this is going to be accompanied by, or is it going to be accompanied by any sort of bearish divergence here, or hidden bearish divergence more accurately? No, not on the 4 hour. It's actually not present there. Maybe on a lower term time frame, like a 2 hour or an hourly, so where I might expect to see it. And what about on a 2 hour? Actually, do we actually have it here? Barely, just barely. This would be a pretty damn far look back period right here. This is, by the way, a 2 hour, so I wouldn't really expect too much off that as well. Yeah, the 3 hour does show, though. The 3 hour does show going from this point to this point, and yes, that looks a little bit more right to me. And yes, this would be the first thing that's actually documentable that shows me that we're probably going to come back down to about 10.5 in the short term. So I would be looking for some short term down right here. See if CMEs show anything on the lower term timeframes as well. Let's go to a 4 hour. Not really. The 200 simple still governs all the highs. And what do we see on 4 hour momentum popping back up right now? Where does that remain to the upside though? Yeah, 10.5. Okay, interesting. And do we have any divergences here? Nope, we don't. What about on 2 hour? Nope, we still don't as well, actually. So that is actually a little bit interesting. You would expect to see the same thing on CMEs as you do on spot. And usually my rule is if I don't see it on CMEs, but I see it on spot, then I do not play it. And in this case right here, we don't see it on CMEs, to be fair. So there is a little bit of bifurcation going on right now. But I do think that it is also important to reflect upon the higher term timeframes for CME, which are a little bit more obviously downside angled. Looking at both the weekly and the daily. Here's your weekly, by the way. Still playing between the 10 simple and the 21, and the 10 simple now officially has a negative slope. I'd pretty much look for this range to play out a little bit more, and that is basically getting our current range as it is anyways. So all these things naturally have confluence with each other, and this one is a little bit more slightly downside angled, like I said. So weekly Stokes still headed nice and southward. We have the same sort of trend line here that you can probably visualize, protecting against the bearish control zone. But again, that does leave up quite a bit of space between where we are right now and that region. Looking at weekly RSI, again, long-term constructive, short-term, medium-term, mostly neutral is really what it is. But now I really want to focus, or actually, before we get to what I want to actually focus on, let's go over here to our secondary chart, see if there's anything of note going on right here, anything that could potentially twist it up. And I haven't even looked at this. Weekly MACD did turn down a couple weeks ago, I actually did not. I actually typically don't even reference this chart. It's kind of funny. Maybe a big mistake by myself. Still playing off the 20 symbol to the downside though. And guess where it is? It's at 10,220. So that would be our our last week's low. And more importantly, that would be the continuation point for actually destroying our current higher low structure. So that would confirm your downtrend right there. But let's go back to a daily and see what do we have. Getting rejected by the 20 symbol. And this is really, 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 really important here. This is actually the first time today that I felt like there's something a little more obvious, except for what we saw on the 3 hour and 4 hour, suggesting short-term down based off of a short-term hidden bearish divergence call. But looking at this right here, looking at the daily, we are getting rejected from the 20 simple as it is right now. More importantly, with that, it is starting to get a negative slope, and this would be fully confirmed, especially if today closes anywhere here or lower. Anything like a rejection, it will not only get a negative slope, but it will confirm that rejection, and that's when I do start to look for Bitcoin to start to play back down towards the bottom side Bollinger Band, somewhere around this region right here at around 10.3 or wherever the bottom side Bollinger Band is. Yeah, about 10.3. The reason why that is interesting is because, well, that does put you in danger of destroying your higher low structure right here. And on daily MACD, we are extremely low right now. What do you want to make of this, though? The histogram is actually increasing right now. That's actually rather interesting. We don't see any divergences on the histogram, though, so that doesn't really give us all that much. We are crawling up to the zero read. You typically do see counter trend pressure right there, but we're still got a little bit more to go. So how much longer does this drag on for? I don't know. Maybe another week at most. But I do believe that this is really winding up for an actual release. And you can also see this from the Bollinger Bands as well, which are rather tight around price action. So we got Bollinger Bands, historical volatility percentile, we got volume, we got technically speaking a formation in there as well, symmetrical triangle as it stands right now. And I think that was it actually. Yeah, so 4 or 5 points of confluence suggesting that we do get a move sooner rather than later. And in this case right here, with the way that it's currently angled, it would suggest to the downside, yes. So fair enough. Okay, but now let's get on to the stuff that like actually fucking matters. And I think that this is going to probably clarify a lot of things. Nasdaq, right? Nasdaq Futures. Let's go reference this. We said that it was likely to open to the upside today, and I believe that we did open to the up. Yes, we did. Yep. A little bit of an up open, and I would be looking for this to get pushed back around the time that U.S. markets open up later today at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Looking at this right here, we do have a hidden bearish divergence call to be had as well between this point and this point, similar to what we see on Bitcoin. And I'm curious what how high of a time frame this goes up to. Yeah, not gonna be on a 4 hour because we don't really have the same structure at all there. Not gonna be on a 3 hour as well, and the bi-hourly probably gonna be the same thing too. Yeah, indeed. So realistically, what do we see across the board right now? We do see that today actually might be a range as well, looking at NASDAQ, but daily Stokes are way the fuck on up there, loosening their grip a little bit here. And where are they going to turn back down? Around 11,331. And guess how high we've gone on our current rally today? Just actually a few bucks above there, it looks like right now. So I do believe that we've seen that sort of slight up open probably stays around here until traditional markets open up officially later today. And that'll be looking for it to push back once again. So to me, looking at both the daily and the weekly are a little bit damning here. Actually, the weekly less so, but the weekly did get rejected. Actually, hold on. Could I be massively wrong on this? Hold on. I might actually be massively wrong on this. The weekly is giving me something else to look at. Let's go look at E-mini futures for SPY here too. No, SPY is obviously bearishly biased here. Very interesting, but NASDAQ is different. There is something to say about this. NASDAQ actually is different right now. Let's see. What about the 2-day? What about the 3-day? Okay, this is quite profound actually right now. Realistically, it's saying that we have a range between about 11.4 and 11,000 even. And that's pretty much Bitcoin's range as well. Interesting, very interesting. Still looking at the lower term time frames, I actually do think that this gets another try to the downside before anything else. So it kind of hangs around here until regular markets open, and then I'll be looking for another move back down somewhere around $11,000, and then probably another small bounce there as well. And then we'll come back and analyze that likely tomorrow. Or well, I mean, what if it all gets resolved today? If Nasdaq were to break to the downside today, I would be looking for a greater move down to about 10.8 region, but I would still be looking for a bounce there. Realistically, though, I would want to see this one in real time because there is a few competing narratives going on right now. But still, on the short-term timeframes, yes, down. Medium and higher-term timeframes, a little bit. I'd say a little bit more on the neutral side than anything. So perhaps it might be worthwhile to go check out Eurodollar because Bitcoin does seem to trade rather well with it as well. And what do we see here on the daily? Weekly actually wants to pop back up. I'll be looking for this one to pop back up a little bit more actually. Probably somewhere around the 200 moving average on the 4 hour, which is around 118 region. Not really getting too much from this either though. This is so strange today. This is so strange. And historical volatility percentile, by the way, on the 4 hours is incredibly low. Everything is low across the board. This is actually very, very interesting. I do believe that we're going to be getting a move this week, like a big move. I mean, we see it across all major markets right now. The question is, does it go to the upside or the downside? I think overall, Eurodollar is bearish here, but short term, does it have some more upside? If it does, I'd be looking towards 118, and that would be further verified or further helped out. Let me go back down the 4 hour right here with any sort of a 4 hour total closure above 117.5, wherever the 200 Benjamin average is, and then I'd be looking for a move all the way up to the 200 simple. So that's about a half cent higher. Yeah, about a half cent higher, it looks like, which is pretty big fucking move in Forex land. And I would be looking for rejection right here as well. I would be looking for it to push back. In the meantime, though, I really don't have any strong opinions on this as it is right now. I do see that there is hidden bullish divergence here between this point and this point, so that probably does beget another test back up to the 200 exponential average, but that doesn't actually mean that we're going to break it. But if it does break, yes, I'd be looking for a short-term move back, up to about 118 region. Anyways, let me just see how long this video is. It's already 30 minutes. What the hell? What in the actual hell? All right, let's just go look at Dixie instead. This one's going to be hopefully the deal breaker or the tiebreaker. Looking at the daily right here, what do we see? We do see momentum headed down. We do see daily RSI a little bit more bearishly angled, but still neutral nonetheless. I mean, shit, man, these are literally all the same charts. They're all the same fucking charts. It's so crazy. I do think that this actually does have some downside here. Now, I have to be so careful with how I relate this idea. I do believe that there's downside here, short term, and even a decent amount of downside. But I do believe that we're going to be putting in a major macro low anywhere between kind of where we are right now at about 93.5 all the way down to about 92.5. It's a dollar range on Dixie, which is pretty damn big to be fair, but macro, we do have to be aware of where we are right now, and this still is kind of being walked upon the 200x Benjamin average, this purple moon average right here, which has been governing our major lows, and also kind of governing this what would be an ascending triangle formation as it is right now. And I do believe that, yes, we also do have hidden bullish evidence on the monthly here too. So long term, I'm actually looking for a major move to the upside from this one. But when I'm talking about long term on Dixie, that's like, looking at a month like this, I'm talking about like 3 months to 6 months of price action. And then long term on top of that, I'm quite bullish as well, but that's still more like 3 to 5 years down the road. Short term, however, again, need to be very careful with my words right now. I do think that we actually have some downside here. And if we do have some downside here, that would correlate with the upside in just about all of the major assets. So which one is going to give right now? Well, if there is one thing that's being a little more obvious, it would be Dixie. This is such a strange day today. Usually we see a lot of things kind of agree with each other and a lot of and most things go with each other. But I suppose that would be my cue to myself, just not to really be trading. Of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but that's usually I want to see everything kind of line up with each other. That's typically where the magic happens. Looking at gold coming down, that would also be a little more obvious here as well. So I would be looking at Bitcoin probably to come down as well. You know what? Maybe gold is the parrot in the coal mine, the canary in the coal mine, the parrot in the coal mine. Gold's more obviously bearish on the short-term timeframes. Higher-term timeframes is more obviously bearish as well. But again, what we've been seeing is more or less the same across all major assets, except for gold being a little more obvious here. So gold likely coming back down towards about 1875, and that's pretty much how I feel about Bitcoin. Probably coming back down to about 10.5 short term, somewhere around here, maybe even all the way down to about 10.4, our last prior low right there. I don't really have much to make out of that. On top of that, I need to see an actual break of structure from here. It's too tight. It's too tight like a tiger. It's been wound up for about a month now, and an explosion will very likely be violent. So, playing short-term moves off this, it's all fine and dandy until you get run over by a fucking train, trying to pick up pennies off the railroad track. Realistically, this likely does break this this week. And with that said, I'd really want to see one of the key major things that we spoke about on kind of like the medium term timeframes to actually break and resolve this current range. So again, that would be that'd be below 10,220 or any sort of a 12-hour or daily closure above 10.9, we'll call it. One of those two things would resolve this, and that would likely carry on the next momentous direction for probably the next month or two to come, and then we'll come back and analyze it after that. What else? I feel like I'm missing something today. Yeah, we don't have any regular stocks to be looking at. Nothing's changed there. I think I'd mostly just revert back to what I said over this weekend. Likely just kind of go trend sideways until we actually get traditional markets opening up, and then I'd be looking for some down action. But still, the big news of this week is likely going to be the resolution of this, which, as it is right now, I would actually put the probabilities on the downside. But let's not go off of my opinion on that. Let's actually go reference the probability panel over here and get actual numbers. So we can use the 10.9 area now to the upside for a 12-hour daily closure. To the downside, I'm going to use 10,200. Yes, technically 10,220. Same thing, man, as far as I'm concerned. And we'll put that on. We'll go to a 12-hour right here. We'll take everything off, and what do we see? We actually have an 84.25% probability to just end between that range. And again, that's between about 10,220 and 10.9 to the upside. That's on the next 12-hour closure. Nothing more, nothing less. After that, it will naturally change. So is it saying that we're going to suggest, or sorry, is it suggesting that we're going to resolve this range before the next 12-hour closure? Very unlikely, actually. And of course, is the 12-hour closure before regular market opens? Actually, it is about an hour and a half before regular market opens. So as it stands right now, probably not too much to look forward until that time period as well. But looking at the daily, what do we see? We do see that it's a little bit more actually geared towards the upside right now, 32.5%, which does make sense. We're a lot closer to the upside resolution of this, and 32.5% is pretty fucking high. Obviously, the inside range probability being a little bit above 50% is much higher than that. But anytime that we really get above 30% read on this, that's probable enough as far as I'm concerned, man. That's probable enough. The below target probability showing about 17% as well. That does seem deceptively low, but that's really within the guise of the first standard deviation. Looking at the daily here as well, as that is above a 16% probability. So again, do we see resolution today? Maybe not. However, I do believe that it's going to be set up probably sometime this week. I do think that that's what we're looking at right now. So with all of that in mind, I think I'm going to be making this video a little bit shorter today, mostly because I don't think there's too many new things to be discussing. Really, the only things that I have to add on today that I didn't say yesterday was, we got that move to the upside that we were looking for. I'll be looking for this to push back down now. I do think short term, probably coming back down to about 10.5 region. But I really wait for traditional markets to open up to show the real direction, as there's a little more obvious things going on right there for likely what likely does kind of end up being a downside resolution, at least if I had to give my opinion on it. But of course, at the end of the day, I don't trade my opinion. I trade technical analysis in this regard right here. This would be a great case because Bitcoin does break above 10.9. I'm not going to trade it, but but I would trade it if I was trading this asset, and I will be trading similar things on Forex, as you will likely notice that euro dollar trades relatively similar as far as the major moves goes, to these things as well. They're all kind of marked against the same thing, that being the dollar. And to the downside below 10,220, I do get interested at the very least for a short-term move to the downside, back down to about 9,900-ish region, which was our daily 200 exponential moving average right here, and also just where all of these major wicks have been accumulated throughout the month of September. And I'll be looking for another short-term bounce off that region and likely set it up for an actual official break, probably later this week. So with that in mind, I am going to be shutting off this video nice and early. I want to wish you the best of the best and the happiest once again. Take care, and until next time.